Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us here today. Yes, super excited to be here talking about MeetMat 5. This is obviously the 5th edition of arguably the best texturing contest there is. Look, we've got a lot to get through today, so to just give you a bit of a quick introduction, my name's Andrew McDonald. I'm one of the co-founders here at The Rookies. Look, we are the largest launchpad and training ground for digital artists trying to break into creative industries. And look, we do that. We basically create a massive community, a platform, and bring people together, give them a bit of training, help them with opportunities and launch their careers. And we've been working with Adobe for a while now. This is our 3rd version of MeetMat. And in terms of opportunities to try and launch your career and get your work seen, this is up there with one of my favorite events of the calendar year. I am here with Pablo Muñoz Gómez, a good friend, and once again, probably the absolute best digital artist in Substance 3D, in my opinion. And obviously ZBrush, used to be a big fan of all the work he used to do there. So yeah, it's good to have you here today, Pablo.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for that introduction. Yeah, I didn't know my camera was on. I was just having my coffee, chilling here. But yeah, I second all of that, especially because our collaboration with the rookies and everything that we've done is you can actually see the results of everything that you guys do, and like what people are kind of like climbing the ladder, if that makes sense. So it's great to see it and see how it is applied in this contest, and so that people make the most out of it.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, yeah, we've got a bit to get through today. So obviously we're talking MeetMat 5. Just to give you a quick overview so you know what we're going to get through. Obviously, we're going to talk MeetMat, everything about this legendary little guy. We're going to talk about the new design brief. Things have changed this year, so that one's super important. Obviously, we'll touch on guidelines, we'll touch on the rules, then get into the fun stuff like the badging, and obviously some pretty amazing prizes as usual. And then, yeah, we'll have a little chat about the judging process. And then Pablo, he's going to jump in and get into Substance Painter and show you around and just give you a few tips and just show his process. And yeah, we can hopefully have that a little bit interactive. Obviously, we've got people here helping out just to try and get your questions. So if you've got questions about anything that is being spoken about today, get them in there. We will have time at the end, hopefully, to go through those. And yeah, so to kick things off, if you don't know who Matt is, that's a little surprising, but here he is. Think of him as a kind of cool little vinyl toy. This was introduced back in 2017, and it came as part of the whole Substance 3D package. It was kind of used there just for everyone to kind of test the materials and textures and just have something a bit more interesting than, let's say, a teapot or a sphere to actually show off their cool renders. So I think since then, Matt has taken on, I guess, his own life. I mean, tens of thousands of digital artists have transformed this very basic little character into the most amazing artwork imaginable, to the point that there are books written about this little guy. And, you know, you should actually really try and get your hands on one of these. I'm sure they're still printing them, and it's just a beautiful book without trying to plug it. Like, it genuinely is one of my favorite art books. And yeah, I'm not even in it. So look, there it goes. So this contest with MeetMat is pretty simple, right? Like, and I think that's what I really like about it, that everyone's starting with the same mesh. They've got this little character, but the brief is wide open. You can kind of do anything you want, and you can see back. Obviously, we've been doing this for 5 years, and you can see, if you dig around and even Google search, you'll see the history of all the characters that have been created. And you can kind of see just here with just some of the general stuff from MeetMat 1 and 2. And then obviously with the last couple of versions, that's where the rookies has come in, and we've sort of been involved with this since MeetMat 3, really focusing on sort of non-professional digital artists, using this as a platform, not just to learn about how cool Substance 3D is and how powerful it is in terms of texturing, rendering, doing all your materials. It's just that opportunity that, is a great contest and a platform to get involved in. And look, I'm going to quickly show you just proper full res versions of some of these characters. These are from last year. I'm going to show you 3 examples. And this is a highly commended version from last year. Now, Pablo, you're a judge last year, right?
Yeah.
And do you remember this guy here?
Yeah, I remember some like the ones that stuck in my mind is this guy. There was one with like a shattered, or not a shattered glass, like colorful glasses. And I think yeah, that one. And
That
then,
one? Yeah.
yep, that one. And I don't know if this was for last year or previous years, maybe previous years. The one with the camera, the Canon camera.
Oh, yeah, that's one
Before.
showing just
Yeah,
here. Yeah, I mean,
yeah. So
that
like
one.
those
Yeah.
ones are like stuck in my mind. But yeah, I do remember those from last year. Same thing with the fish creature as well, and
Yes.
they're all fantastic. I mean, the what I like about these things, and like you said, it's the brief is wide open, but it's kind of like pushing people to be creative with a very restrictive mesh, because there's not much you can do with the mesh itself. Everything has to come from the textures, and that restriction, I think it opens up a bunch of possibilities as well. Because if the brief is open, but also anything can be done, like you can create your own meshes, you can create your own things, it becomes a bit more overwhelming, I think. So having that restriction, it is a great thing to push your creativity, and it shows on these characters. I mean, they're pretty pretty full on crazy, but they're really really cool.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I think that is the beauty of this, that you are kind of restricted. And, when you think about it, that it's been going for so many years now, obviously there's some people who sort of take, sort of a bit of a concept that's been done before, but it's
Yeah,
just amazing how many new and original ideas come out each year. And, I think that's what I'm hoping for this year, which is going to be really exciting. And even just on this one, I mean, we just had this, one of the sponsors, which we'll get to later, is Mamaki. And even seeing these things 3D printed, I saw one of these and it actually looks like stained glass, and they actually put a light in the middle of it. So this
use
this
the
character,
transparent resin.
yeah.
Yeah.
So this little character is something special. So I think, as much as this is kind of probably a little overwhelming for some thinking about this level of skill, when you actually get into Substance 3D and start playing around with this, like, you'll actually realize you'll be hitting these type of renders yourself. So look, I think this is the news that we've sort of been teasing out for a little bit now. Everything is kind of changing this year. We've got a big announcement, which is that for the first time, Matt actually has a little companion this year. So he's not by himself anymore, and I want to introduce you to Mutt. This is going to be his little curious offsider, his little mate, a very similar basic mesh. And as you can see here, this concept here, or this first official version of Matt and Mutt, has been created by yours truly, Pablo. So yeah, Pablo, when you first heard about this and Adobe announced that they were adding Mutt, what did you think?
Yeah, it was pretty exciting, but I didn't know it was gonna be like a pet. I can't remember who mentioned it first, either you or Alvin or something. But yeah, they said, oh, we're gonna have like this new thing, like, and when we started talking about what we could do, I just started thinking about, like, it's gonna be a different version of Matt, and I was like, oh no, what I liked about Matt was that he was Matt, like you can instantly recognize it. So when I got the files and I was like, it's just a pet version of Matt, it was really cool, because then certain things that sometimes, by the way, this is kind of like, off track a little bit, but when I'm designing something or creating a new idea and I have like free range to do stuff, I tend to do a few options. I don't know if you remember last time where we did the one with the graphics, sort of like helmet.
Yeah,
And all.
absolutely.
I did
Yeah.
like four or five different versions, and I did like a couple of other ones that didn't make the cut. So having the new companion of Matt allows for that a little bit. So just to test different things. So what I've done in this one is, the brief was kind of like this sort of cute character, sort of like superhero boy with his pet. But then I can explore things like fur or things that are for more like an animal, like the extrusion with the ears, that sort of thing, compared to matte. So I was really excited to try those two things and being able to have two versions that I like, or two things in one single sort of presentation, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, look, the renders speak for themselves, and I think, I mean, I've just loved this whole concept since day one, and seeing this is the first kind of official version. Yeah, I'm so pumped for what creativity is going to come out of this. I think it's going to be pretty wild. So look, just to like get straight into kind of how this is going to run. Obviously, this is a design challenge. Obviously, there's more than one mesh here. We've got this matte and mutt model, which is all downloadable at the website that we'll show you later. But the design brief here is very similar to before, except there's just two meshes. And we're trying to make sure that they're not treated individual. You have matte doing one thing and mutt doing the other. We want, as part of the brief, for them to feel that they belong together. Obviously, you can see what Pablo did here. He went this superhero theme and had obviously this beautiful sort of relationship, and even the same suit and style and every little beautiful touch about it to bring them together. So that's a really important part with this brief. Obviously, even if you think back and just to one of the examples we showed, where you had the stained glass one, that still is, if you've got the two characters as a stained glass, matte and mutt, that's still bringing them together. There is a connection. It doesn't just have to be about the eyes or whatever that is. It's like, as long as it feels as one, that's a really important part of it. Now, in terms, as you've seen before, like everything's up for grabs. Every style, every theme, every topic, whatever it is kind of up for grabs. So, get creative and just start playing and see what you can come up with. I wanted to quickly touch on some of our sponsors, and we'll get into this later. Obviously, Adobe is the software and the machine behind all of this, and none of this would be possible without them. And same with Lenovo, Intel, obviously everyone knows those guys. Mamaki, I touched on those guys just briefly. They're obviously the cutting edge leaders in 3D printing. We've got some great examples to show of that, and they'll be involved with this. And then obviously Wacom, the leaders in just like stylists and using all that stuff. So who can enter? Now, if you are obviously familiar with the Rookies, we're a platform for non-professional artists. So obviously, because it's hosted over at the Rookies, that's the people that we're actually wanting involved in this. So you need to be over 18, and you need to have no more than 1 year of professional full-time work in a creative industry that's related to substance, whether it's games, animation, visual effects, design. Obviously, there's some nuances there. So if you're maybe done a bit of freelance, maybe done an internship, just contact us and we can have a closer look. All we're trying to do is just make this fair and not have sort of big professionals with 10, 20 years experience swooping in and trying to compete in this. So just as I said, if you're unsure, we can help you figure that one out. And look, you don't have to be associated with a university, a college. This is just, if you are a student, that's great. If you're a hobbyist, that's great too. If you're just starting out, this is the challenge for you. And yeah, it's pretty straightforward with that. So the dates, everything kicks off tomorrow. And yeah, we basically have 62 days to enter. So I mean, that's 2 months, so there should be enough time there. Now, Pablo, I did have a question for you in that sense. Obviously, all digital artists are juggling a hell of a lot of projects, and you've even got digital artists that are studying, and then there's life and everything. And just starting out with possibly a lot of people are going to start out and have never touched Substance 3D Painter before. Just to give them a guideline of maybe starting from scratch and pulling an idea together, how much time do you think that may take?
Great question. So I will tell you based on an actual course that I have Not to shamelessly plug that course in here, but because it's close anyway. But that course is for absolute beginners. So from scratch, telling you everything that you need to do to understand how it works, to producing your assets. That course you can complete it in a month, but that course covers absolutely everything, and we have actually 6 projects. So once you know the basics, you can get up and running in 2 weeks. All you need to understand are some of the basics, and if you want to get ahead of the curve before anything and have some training, if you want to have in my YouTube channel, there is a video called if you know Photoshop, you know Painter, which is basically that it is true. So if you have some knowledge in Photoshop, I draw the comparison between the two software. And if you watch that video, it will give you a good understanding of how you create materials, and that's half of the battle. The rest is just knowing how to mask and how to select things, which is pretty straightforward once you get to it. So to answer your question, Andrew, based on that, because I've seen the students already creating stuff, in a couple of weeks, if you understand the basics, you can start producing really cool stuff. So plenty of time.
Yeah, amazing. Yeah, so I mean, look, I think even last year we only allowed 30 days, and I think allowing the 60 days, it just gives a bit more opportunity to sort of get those fundamental skills and just plan things out, and even just schedule out your own life and what's going on. So look, I think that is the beauty of Substance 3D. I mean, you can get up and running really quickly. There's loads of cool training out there. Obviously, Pablo's got some. We've got even some of your amazing stuff over at the Rookies as well. So, and obviously, just after this, you're going to be, giving a bit of an intro or a mini masterclass as well. So there is plenty of support and plenty of time. But as usual, don't leave it to the last minute. We do have on the Rookies, we do have the platform where we like everyone to kind of share their work as they go, like rather than just coming in at the last minute and just on the last day, the last hour, just dropping a render in and maybe realizing maybe there was something wrong, or, just having that kind of community feedback and support as you're kind of trying to develop your ideas. It's something we definitely recommend. Obviously, there's dates there for, we announce the finalists. So what normally happens, all the entries come through, the judges do their thing, we announce finalists, and then there's obviously the winners and all the celebrations to do with that. So everything is hosted over at the Rookies. For those who are not familiar, obviously it's a platform just to basically allow everyone to have their portfolio up there, share their work, whether it is sort of 3D work like this or more 2D work, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, the contest has a dedicated area. You can see the URL here. So it's therookies.co/meetmat. Everything you need is there. There's even a little bit of history about MeetMat as well, and a few different things, but every sort of, like, obviously it goes into more detail about the official rules and, where you can download the asset and just all that sort of information on how to enter. There's a huge help desk area in terms if you haven't used the platform before or you haven't uploaded anything, it's super straightforward. There's nothing really complicated about it. And as part of that, we've also got a really active Discord server. We might drop the link in there, but obviously if you jump on our platform at the Rookies, you'll see the Discord server really easily. And we will have a dedicated channel set up for that, which will just allow everyone to chat. We will be doing feedback sessions and just trying to help everyone just figure out how to create the coolest bit of art they can. So as I said, we do like everyone just sharing little updates. It's really important. It is a community to just help each other, and it's amazing how much it can help just to share your work, even when you hate it or you're not happy with it. Every artist gets into that position. So, that's where we do try and help in the sense of just getting another set of eyes on it, getting a little bit of a different perspective, or just helping solve a technical, question. So to get your hands on this incredible software, there's a free 30-day trial. We have the links available for that on the contest page. We'll drop them in here as well. anyone can grab that. There's no drama with that. There's also student licensing available. So if you are a student at a college or a university, you can go through and actually get your license for there. And then, as I said, the model is actually, there's a link to a Dropbox folder, because this is a custom one. Obviously, the original mat still comes with substance, but this is a special new version that isn't part of the actual software download. So we have that file and everything you need to start getting creative. All right, so just a few little requirements or just kind of rules. The main one is we're looking for new and original designs. Obviously, we don't want people coming through and just doing a little bit of a better version of one they've done before, or taking one that was done and just kind of tweaking it a bit. And I think that's the beauty of this sort of number 5, is that we have 2 characters. We've got a slightly different brief. It's more exciting, and I feel like there's more potential. So make sure you really try and think outside the box and just push your concepts a little bit further. One of the biggest ones, and we can help with this, but it should be pretty straightforward, is that we don't want you to use any well-known IP. So obviously we don't want you to suddenly do a Marvel character, or whether it is like, I don't know, a Coca-Cola version. Obviously use your kind of common sense here. You can maybe do a homage very softly towards, a superhero, which exactly is what Pablo did. He's created his own superhero, but it wasn't a Marvel or DC superhero. So just a little bit of common sense there. If you aren't unsure at any level, same thing, drop it in the Discord server. We will let you know, and we can maybe guide you on how to do that correctly. Now, as you saw in the examples of the winners last year, there were 2 renders. So in the scene that we're providing with Painter, we've basically got 2 cameras. So you've got a front camera and then a 3/4 front camera. So that allows the judges to see very clearly the difference between the 2 cameras and compare everyone sort of very, easily. Now, that doesn't mean you can't share other images as well. You can do little close-ups, you can do, stuff from the back, whatever it is, you can include that. And you can actually, we've had entrants before, they've done a little bit more with the background just to help. They've had a little bit of extra time, but that's not necessarily something that's going to influence the judges. Obviously, it's going to help see a little bit more detail. Say, in that example we had with Pablo, just so you can see the stitching and some of the finer details. That's great. That does help. So definitely consider it if you've got time. But it's really the 2 high-res renders that we're looking for. Now, depending on your render capabilities and your time and all of that stuff, we're looking for 4K renders through these cameras. Look, at the very least, a 2K render is acceptable. See how you go with the time, and whether you've managed your time well enough to get those renders out nice and early. Now, some prizes and awards. Obviously, we have the coveted badges that, a big part of the Rookies platform, and go on your portfolio and, can share with everyone online, from, friends to, on LinkedIn. So they're a big part of it. Obviously, all our winners, runner-up, highly commended. These are custom badges that we only give away once a year. We've also got, obviously, Adobe coming to the party with some Creative Cloud subscriptions. So same thing, we've got winner, runner-up, highly commended, all getting those annual subscriptions to all their amazing software. Now, some of the juicier prizes here. Lenovo has, they've always been a big partner of ours, which is amazing. And they are offering the winner and a runner-up a ThinkPad P1 mobile workstation. And this thing, just have a little dig around. It is a monster. So I think if that's, a nice little cherry on top, a nice incentive, and then that can be paired with a Intuos Pro, you're going to be, there will be no worries about rendering or pushing substance as far as it needs to go. And yeah, you can take that, from home to work to the coffee shop to wherever, right? So yeah, super excited to hand that across to someone later this year. So the last prize here, and these images do not do this justice, but this is Markey. They, as I said before, they are literally the world's leading 3D printers, on the market. And we've basically got 2 medium full-size 3D prints. That'll be for the winner and the runner-up. These things look incredible. This is not stuff that you can do at home. These machines are enormous. And we have a bunch of that stuff on our platform, and obviously just have a little dig through some of the stuff that we've been doing recently with Markey on our socials, and you'll get a real taste for how high quality these prints are. So you'll obviously take home a full 3D version of your little meat mat and meat mutt design, which will be, pretty cool. Now, just to give you a little bit of a guideline here, obviously with the brief, you sort of want to understand, like, what are the judges looking for? And I mean, for me, it's very straightforward in the sense that we try and get the judges to cover a few different areas. They're obviously looking at the creativity. They're looking at obviously technical skills. Obviously, the brief is a really big part of this, especially this year, because there's the 2 characters and that kind of requirement of that connection between them. We do have 2 rounds of judging, and there's a lot going on. And as you can see, we've got a great lineup of judges, everyone from, working at Adobe to Industrial Light and Magic, PlayStation Studios. We've actually added 3 more judges. I saw those were added last night. So check out the platform to see who those are. There's a couple of special little guests there, which is really cool. Actually, Pablo, I mean, I can see, look at a handsome fellow down the bottom right there. Like, do you have, obviously, I think you've been judging this for a while now. Like, is there anything else you want to, is there anything you want to sort of add to maybe what sort of you look for?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think every judge will look at slightly, it will kind of like have a skew maybe version of what they're looking for. So maybe some look for more technical stuff, more creative stuff. But we do look at, the entirety of the entry, and we go through every single topic, right? I personally like the creative and the uniqueness and the appeal of the characters. So as soon as I see it, like as soon as I turn on or put on the image on the screen, and if it appeals to me, that's like a big thing. And then I just go a little bit deeper. Since this is a contest for beginners or like someone that is getting started, the technical aspect is very important. But sometimes I think, when you get too technical, it sort of like restricts your creativity a little bit, because you're trying to stick too close within this, time, framework of I have to do the UVs this way, or I have to follow this exactly the same way. So that is technical. So sometimes I just think, be more creative, and then let the technicalities of it support your work later on. So that's just like me. I will look at the technical aspect, but I'm looking more for a creative, unique design, something that is striking and appealing, because the technical thing is something that over time you'll get better at. But as long as you can express creatively, that's the main thing for me.
No, I love it. That's some, really good advice there. So look, I think this is another part that obviously it's one thing to do a design challenge. I think that's where we really try and make sure everyone's a bit supported with this. Obviously, there's going to be people entering this who, pretty comfortable and confident with Substance 3D Painter. But then, like all years, we have a lot of new artists come on. They haven't really sort of trialed out what these tools are, and we find that this is a really good incentive and a good timeline for them to actually get involved. So the big part, and one of the most important parts for us, is to make sure everyone feels supported and can learn at the same time. So obviously, we have touched on this, but this is why we have the guru himself here right now, to try and walk through a bit of that. And obviously during, as I said, we've got 60 days worth of time to actually get your entries involved. We will be doing more training sessions over on our Discord server. I'm sure Pablo will drop in now and then to share some advice and check out what's going on. But
Yeah, for sure.
we're gonna answer some questions a bit later, but I'm gonna pass over to you, Pablo, just to show some cool stuff.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. How are we doing with time though? Yeah, okay, plenty of time. I'm gonna show you some stuff. Let me know when you can see my screen first, and then I can show you.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All right. So what I thought we could do today is, if you have like questions already, if whatever, everything that Andrew has been talking about got you excited, and then you're thinking, oh, I wonder if I could do this, or I have an idea of a character. Can I do that in Painter? So that's what I would like to do now. So if you have questions, if you want me to like run you through some things, I'm happy to do that right now. But I also have kind of like a breakdown of certain things that I want to show you with these characters. So the main thing when I got the brief was to create something unique, something kind of like cute in that sort of like Pixar sort of style that feels, unified. And that's something that we're going to be looking at as well as the judges. So that the two characters, they feel part of the same story, right? And there is a connection there. So I try to keep it very, very simple as well, just so that, you don't get overwhelmed thinking, oh, this is going to be like really complicated. How can I just achieve something like these eyes? They might be a bit too hard. Or when you see things that are very complex on the final, let's say, render, you might get discouraged. But in actual fact, this is very, very simple. It just takes a while to get there, but you have plenty of time. So it's just about the incremental compounded effect of tiny little things that you learn, small changes that, amount for these more complex things. So this was really, really simple. And I want to show you some things that you can do. And one of the best things, I think, from Painter is that it's non-destructive. So let's just get into that. I have a bit of a mess with my layers. Don't worry about all of these things. This is just, some of them are not even like, let's delete that one, right? Some of them are not even working. But I want to show you a couple of things. So first, I'm going to turn off the shadows so that we see something kind of like a clear version. Also, by the way, if you click on this icon right here, you have perspective versus orthographic. For this character, I like to work in orthographic, just I see more of it, but you can also change that perspective. That's just for the working mode. The other thing that you'll notice is that the dog or Moot, in my case, I treat it as a dog, but you can do anything, right? That's the whole point. He has like these big ears, and if you look at it from the side, the same thing with Mad, has like the nose and this sort of like snout of the character. So all of that is achieved with displacement. So that is here under the shading, shading properties here, or shading settings. You have the displacement. So by default is disabled. So it will look like this. So if you're just pushing the hide information, because you will see that if you do tutorials, you'll see that everyone's like, oh, with the hide information, you can just push things. But if you don't have the displacement enabled, you actually won't see the deformation of the geometry, right? So you will see kind of like the effect, and you can just rotate the light around and you see, oh yeah, there is, some height variation there, but it's not visible in geometry. So in order to do that, you need to click on enable displacement. And these two sliders are very important. The scale, I wouldn't mess with this because 0.05 is kind of like a good, kind of like default value that allows you to then export that and render it properly. The tessellation is very important. The tessellation is kind of like the amount of subdivisions in a way that Painter is doing. So if you have none, it's going to look a bit choppy. Let's just find something. Yeah, see the eyes? It will look like this, which is, not great. But that is just the way that you're displaying things in Painter. So you can just take this subdivision count and push it up. As you see, as I go up, it just increases the quality. So just be aware of that. Those are like tiny little things that if you want to push things of how they look, this is kind of like the main thing. I'm going to leave it at 16, which is pretty high. But But yeah, let's just leave it as it is. Now, the non-destructive thing that I was talking about, if we find, let me just find the eyes of this character. Here we go. So I set things up in a non-destructive way, meaning that everything that I have set up can be adjusted and tweaked, so you can convert this into a completely different character or very different character with the colors and everything. So I can take this eye, for instance, and I can go in this mode, and I can just move the eyes around. Yeah. So you see, obviously something like this might be kind of like a cute one. But yeah, I just made it so that it was kind of like looking at the other character. So this is non-destructive, meaning I can move this around and I'm preserving the mask in there. And this is how I prefer to work, so that at any point I can just go back and say, you know what, maybe the mouth is not nice or it doesn't look as good. So I can go back here and I have this in a path tool, which I'll show you all of this in just a second. I want to kind of like run you through this, but I'm also conscious of the time. But basically the entire mouth of this character is controlled with a single path, which is this one. So if I turn that off, there's nothing there. And there's a couple of layers. So let me just show you what that looks like. Okay, so this layer, a single layer that has color and height information. So all I'm doing here is with the path tool, I trace this path for what the mouth would be. I added some color and I push that in. Like I said, it's non-destructive. So if I wanted to do a weird mouth that just sticks out for whatever reason, I can push it forward. Obviously, this doesn't make any sense, but this is the power of Painter. I can just, adjust this on the fly. Now, this, if you do something like this, it will be like, okay, you go like, I have depth and I have a color in the mouth, so you can tell it's the mouth. But you can use other tools in Painter to enhance that and make it look a lot more interesting. So if I open up the mask and I'm going to go in here, you see it's just a simple white line that I created with the path tool. I'll cover that in a second. So that's here. But then on top of that, I added a bevel. Get closer here. I added a bevel, so that basically blurs the edges a little bit. And then I added an anchor point. So essentially all I have is a single, and this is what I was talking about, by the way, of like the simplicity. Sometimes it looks very complex, but it's very simple. So a simple line, then I blurred it so that it's not as intense. And let me just show you what happens when I do that. So before, after, right? It just gives you that sort of nice transition. So it's not as sharp. That's all it's doing. And then the mouth, this one right here, this anchor point, this is telling the software Painter, hey, I want you to remember anything that is below this point, and then I can recall it somewhere else. So that's exactly what I did in the next layer. So in the next layer, if I go into the mask itself, this fill layer, it's recalling this anchor point. This is getting a little bit, if you've never used Painter before, this might be like a bit, overwhelming, but trust me, once you get the hang of it, and that's what I mentioned, there's something in my channel that could tell you this very easily, but once you get the hang of it, it's very, very easy. So all I'm doing is in a different layer with this fill layer, I'm recalling this whole thing, right? So I'm just taking this and then I'm adding another blur just to make it a bit softer. And then I'm using the same one. So I'm recalling it again, but I'm actually setting this to multiply. So by default, it will be replace, I think it will be normal. So by default, it will be like this. And I think I also have that inverted. So it will be like this, right? So I'm recalling it from here. So this is exactly the same. But now I'm telling the software, all right, Painter, I want you to invert this because I don't want to have all of this. And then I want to multiply this. The same thing in Photoshop. You have multiply, screen. So in this case, I want the white color of this visible area to be ignored or be transparent. So I'll set it as a multiply. And you see, this is kind of like the compounding effect again. So you have the first recall, the blur, and then I'm subtracting this bit. So all I'm getting here is just a nice soft white area or white gradient around the mouth. Then I can take my layer here and I can change things to create kind of like a bit of the lips. So I can push this forward, right? And you see, because I have that restriction of that mask, it's only pushing the mouth in there. Now, this is kind of like the complicated part or the complicated setup, which is not that complicated, but I understand if like this is the first time that you look at it, it's like, this is too much information. So I'll show you how to do that. But the cool thing about this is that once this is set up, once you set up the workflow, you can go back to your original paint path and go, you know what, I'm gonna make this guy really, really happy. And that changes the look and feel. So it looks a bit creepier now, right? But it's something that you can do on the fly really quickly. And let's say if you want to open the mouth even more, so you select the path, you take these points, and because it's non-destructive, you select the points that you want, and then you go to the size, and then you do this, right? And then you can add maybe teeth or other stuff in there, because all you're doing is restricting this by mask. I'm gonna make it cute again because this is a creepy smile. But yeah, so that is essentially it, right? So that is non-destructive. The other cool thing that I want to show you, just to give you ideas, I guess, is because the material part is really easy. You can download from the Substance library a bunch of things and just drag and drop them in there. I'll show you that as well if we have time. But it's very easy. So I don't want to spend too much time on showing you how to drag and drop materials because that's the basics of it. My intention was to give you ideas of like, oh, I didn't know that you could do this in Painter. So another thing you can do is, for example, you'll notice that this character has some folds, right? Some wrinkles. That's also driven by very simple mask and very simple paint layers. So if I find there's a folder called folds, or should be somewhere here. Oh, sorry, I need to change to a different texture set, which is a different object. That's how Painter treats different objects as texture sets. So this is just the body. And there should be here some folds. I should really name this properly. So yeah, I always say kind of like do as I say, not as I do, because I keep saying to my students and everyone, just make sure that you name things and you can find them, but I never do it. Here we go. So I'm gonna give it a blue color. So this folder, these are folds and wrinkles, right? So there are two simple layers. If I turn this on and off for all of them, you see how it is just changing the design a little bit. And it's very, very simple. If I go into the mask itself, I have two things. One is a paint layer and another one is a blur layer or effect, sorry. So all I'm doing is painting this, well, not random, but like very rough lines, and then adding some blur so that is not as strong, the effect. And then I'm controlling the height information from this layer. So at any point I can come back and go, you know what, I need more. So I can push this in, right? Or maybe this is too much, so I make it a bit subtle. And then these are like I will say in. So folds that are going in, just to add a bit of subtraction and additive volume. And these ones are going out. So I can do the same thing. So you can push this in and out, right? So you can exaggerate things as much as you want. And that's the idea with what I wanted to show you. Like you can do very, very simple stuff. If you want, maybe let's do, I mean, the hoodie also has some layers, but I'm going to show you here as a quick reference how to set this up, because like I said, it's very easy. So let's go here at the top. I'm going to create a fill layer, and let's call this one false. Yeah, false is fine. Let's go ahead and create a black mask. And this is the backbone of texturing. If you understand black and white or grayscale images and masks, that's all you really need. So adding a black mask, and I'm gonna, in the black mask, and this is another amazing thing about 3D Painter, is that you can create a stack of effects within the mask. So if you think in terms of Photoshop, you can have a layer, and then you can have a mask in that layer, and then you can edit that mask. In Painter is the same, but you have an extra level of control, because the mask itself allows, or you can change, or you can add effects and a stack of effects within the mask itself. So it is non-destructive. So whereas in Photoshop, if you paint the mask, that's it. You'll need to either erase it or do something else, or clear it. But in here, I'm not gonna directly paint on the mask, which you can. So this is the mask selected. You see it by a blue outline. And let's just select a very simple, hard, basic brush, right? So let's go ahead and do something like this, right? This is a destructive way of working, because I'm painting directly the mask, like in Photoshop, right? So you see black and white image, but this is what I'm doing. So obviously I'm revealing this white color, which, I'm gonna make it red so that you can see or like a different color just so that you can see clearly what I'm doing. But yeah, this is the destructive way. So let's right click the mask and go clear mask. So again, there's nothing here. And instead, I'm gonna go to the magic one, click on add paint. And this is the same thing. The difference is that now, if I do this, these lines are not gonna be directly in the mask itself, are gonna be in a paint layer. So this is super powerful because you can add as many as you want. So let's do another paint layer, maybe another fold here. If you wanna do this, as many paint layers as you want. So each time that you add a paint layer, you can do something different, right? And that's the power of building up your mask. Then on top of that, you can add effects. So you can say, you know what, I added, or I played with this hard brush, but I realized that if I take my layer and go to the hide information and push that up, let's say, just to create those kind of like folds, and maybe let's get rid of the color here. So these are the channels, by the way. This doesn't really look like folds, right? And that is because there is a harsh transition between the black and white color. That's what I'm saying. If you understand and you can control black and white images, you're good to go. And that's why once you break it down to these simple steps, then you can build a lot of complexity stuff or complex stuff. So on top of this one, I'm gonna click on the magic one, go to add filter, and in here, I'm gonna go blur. So this blur allows you to blur whatever you have below that. So that, what all we're doing here is creating a nice fade transition between the highest point, which will be a pure white, and the lowest point, which will be pure black. So there's a nice gradient transition. So if I go in here, you'll see now we have a soft set of folds that we can control how sharp we want them to be, how smooth we want them to be, just by blurring them. And this is non-destructive, right? As in, we can go back to any of these paints and say, you know what, I don't like this one. Let's get rid of these two, for example, and then go back in here and then paint again. And the cool thing is that now that I've set this up with this simple blur, anything that I paint is going to be below that blur. So automatically it's going to be blurred, right? So that's how simple this thing is. Now, the next thing you can do is create the same thing, but the opposite in terms of how, like, obviously you're not going to have folds that only push the fabric out. For example, you're also going to have the inner or the crevices. So a simple thing you can do is duplicate this, right click and duplicate layer, Control D. And let's call this one folds 2, or you can call it whatever you want, obviously. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this paint, because obviously it's duplicating the same effect. And let's create another one and put it below the blur. And I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to paint this like around here. But in the layer properties itself, this layer here, instead of pushing forward or pushing outwards, I'm going to push this in, right? And I'm also going to increase the amount of blur like that. So just by mixing two very simple layers with two simple painting strokes, you can get something like this very, very easily. So hopefully that gives you ideas of how you can approach these, the whole min-mat contest with different ideas of how to approach the same thing, really. In this case, it's very specific to clothing, but you can do a whole bunch of things like that. So just to give you another example that you might want to play around with, we're still good with time. You can add another layer. Let's make these, again, very bright blue. And I do this all the time, by the way. I like to visualize what the mask that I'm creating is doing, and then I edit it. So I'm going to add a black mask, same process. This time I'm going to add a paint layer, same process. But this time, I'm going to use the path tool. So this is the one that I use for the mouth. So this is even getting to another level of control, because with the paint layer, once you draw the stroke, that's it. You can either remove that stroke or delete it. But with the path tool, you can actually edit that and change it to anything you want. So this is something that I like to do, for example, for hard surface models. I can click once, let's click twice, 3 times. And every time that you click, you create a point, really. So that's it. Nothing too fancy, very simple stuff. If you click on a point like this and go here at the top, by the way, if you don't see all the tools or the options for the tool, you can click on this icon and it will show you more stuff. So the one I'm looking for is this one right here, which allows you to toggle between corner and smooth. So you can click on that, and now this becomes a corner. the quickest way of doing that is just double clicking, but you have it there as well. Just wanted to show you where things are. So just let's assume that this is kind of like a panel for a hard surface model, like a mecha, right? So that's cool. Let's hit enter. And then maybe we can do another one. So let's click here, here, and maybe here, and then make this one arch point. Okay. All right, so we have a very simple set of curves. And we can obviously see that they are just a blue color. So it's not very interesting. However, if we take this blue color and instead we can use the eyedropper and select something like this green, maybe something darker, right? We can also make it metallic. So we can enable metallic, make it full metallic. And then we can also enable the hide information and push that inwards just to create a panel. Again, just think about it as a, it's a hoodie in this case, but if you're doing like a mecha design, this will be a really nice, simple way to create some really nice panels, right? So once you have this, you go like, you know what, this is not working for me. Things are a little bit too thick. So you go to your mask, so your paint layer. Remember, this is just a single paint layer. You select your path, both of them, or one at a time. I think one at a time would be easier. So path 1, and then you go to the size here, and then you can change the entire path, right? So I can do this with this one, for example. That's great. And for the second path, I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to increase the thickness, right? So you can variate it. Not only that, you can also change the spacing. So the spacing is the amount of how many instances of the brush, of that circular hard brush you're adding. So I'm going to increase the spacing until you see essentially this alpha right here. But you can remove that alpha completely and then find another alpha, maybe a triangle, and drop it in there. And all of this comes with Painter, by the way. So that allows you to create this sort of like nice pattern. You can enable this follow path in here, and that tells the software or you're telling the software that you want this alpha. Maybe let's do it with something more obvious, maybe like this arrow, right? You can tell the software, I want to actually follow the path. So you click on this one, and now the arrows are following the path. And then of course you can just rotate to make sure that, they point in the right direction. And then you can keep editing, right? You can keep saying, you know what, I want this to be larger. I want to have maybe more spacing between them, or you want them to be smaller, and this is how you can build things like, let's say the stitching, for example. That's another way to create stitching. So instead of pushing things in, you push things out. But hopefully, again, this gives you ideas. My intention is really to kind of like spark, that curiosity of like, oh, I didn't know you could do that. And then you can just apply it to different type of creatures and characters and mecha styles. But ultimately, it's a very, very simple things. And then you can add on top of it. Now, I don't think we have time for the anchor points, but very briefly, anchor points allows you to reference something that you've done and recall it from a different layer. So I'm going to be very, very brief. I know this might be a little bit, overload of information, but on this one that has my panels, I can just drop an anchor point. So in the magic one, click on anchor point, and let's call this one cool, whatever, just so that we can find it. And then I can create another layer, do another black mask, and then a fill layer. So from the fill layer, I can click on this grayscale, go to anchor points, and then I can find the cool. So you see, all I'm doing now, this is white. All I'm doing is recalling this, whatever is behind, is underneath this one. And I can say with this one, well, you know what? Maybe I want to blur it. So I want to go, let's do a blur really quickly. Maybe I want to blur that. And maybe I want to use the hide information to push it even more. And maybe I want to make it really shiny and rough. I'm just, making things up now. And metallic, full metallic, right? So the cool thing about this, and this is how anchor point works, right, is that you can have multiple layers affecting multiple things, changing the mask in multiple ways, like blurring it, distorting it. Just for the fun of it, I'll do another one, like a warp effect. Right, so you can just do this sort of like scratches type of thing or damage, right? But I'm not affecting neither the original layer nor the original mask. So I can go back in here I can use path tools or I can just paint. And you see as I paint, at the same time that I paint, I'm just adding all of these stack of effects at the same time, like in real time. So it becomes like really, really cool to do this type of, like, let's say damage, or I don't know what this could be. It's actually not too bad. Maybe not for this character, but I just wanted to show you those things. So I know that I tend to talk a little bit too much, so I'm gonna leave it here and let me know if there's any questions. And if there is time, I'm happy to answer anything you guys have.
That was awesome, Pablo. Definitely cool is the word. Yeah, there were some really interesting things. I think I didn't really know too much about the anchor point there, but yeah, I think I'd like to think you've actually sparked a bit of curiosity. Look, obviously there's a heap to learn with this stuff, and yeah, I think over at the Discord server we'll put a whole bunch of information in terms of where you can get a bit more training from Pablo. A whole bunch of resources and basically everything you're going to need to get into this and yeah, have a go. I mean, I think we're literally just sort of down to the last minute or two for this stream. It seems like all the questions have been answered. Obviously, I think people could chat to you, Pablo, for days, and I think it'd be cool to see you keep kicking along and you know, building another character, but we'll let you off the hook. We will try and get you across to our server to like see how things are going. Obviously, as a judge, you're going to be involved quite heavily. And, you know, I guess from us at the Rookies, thanks so much for not just being here, but actually, you know, doing this first version of Meet Matt and Mutt. As always, man, you absolutely kicked it out of the park. And
yeah, no worries, Andrew. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure working with you guys.
Fantastic. All right. Well, look, I hope we did answer everything. I hope you are all super excited to get into this contest. It is the 5th. This is such a big thing for us. We take this with great pride that we get to continue to share Meet Matt with everyone. We cannot wait to see what you actually bring to these two characters, and yeah, let's see what we can do.
Nice one.
Alrighty, thanks a lot, everyone. We'll see you later.